In this video, which is part 36 of the Coinmarketcap chart series for Chartjs, we're going to focus on here the scale, the upper scale here. As we zoom in here, what we're going to have now is we're going to see here the month specific. As you can see here, this is September, and then here is October. It will show the month and it will show the values here. So let's start to look at how we can do this. So what we're going to do now, as we completed our functionalities here at the bottom, we can now finally work on the scale. And what I want to do here is, if you zoom in here, you can see here what is happening. The scale is just showing always these values, and that is not desirable. What I want to do here is to make sure that this will become a bit more easier to read. First of all, we'll see the numbers, but not all of them, only the ones that matters. Next, what we want to see as well is the month, and we want to make that bold. And what we want to do as well is, when we zoom in, we should be able to see every variable. But as we zoom out, we should reduce the amount of view of the values that we have. So let's scroll down here and start working on it, because this is on the options in the first scale, which is the chart or my chart number 1. And then specifically in the X scale here. So what I'm going to do here is a comma. And then what we're going to do here now is step by step working on this. First thing what I want to remove here is these lines going up and down. And in Chartjs, there's a special command which is called draw on chart area. So let me show you first of all what it does and why we're not going to use that one. So if we're going to say here draw on chart area, I'm going to say here this is set on false. Save. What will happen? It will remove the lines here. Normally we will need this, and the reason why, you can see here down we have these tick marks, and then we have the tick marks as well. So if you look at the Coinmarketcap chart, you will see those tick marks in there. However, it is not the way it's supposed to be, and the reason why this is the case is because it is like a category axis, or sorry, it's not a category axis, this is like a linear axis where it highlights the point or the data point basically. And what we want eventually is this item should highlight here, and it's instead of here. Well, basically how these tick marks are being set is exactly the opposite of what we want. We want it in the center here to highlight the data point instead of this bracket here. So this means we need to remove all of these lines here. So I'm going to say here on grid, display false. Refresh, and now you can see here we don't have any more of these tick marks. A very pity item, because it would save us a lot of time. However, we can build our own, so don't worry about that. But that's later on. So what we're going to do next is we're going to work here on the next item, which is basically, we can say here, the ticks. And within the ticks here, we need to create a callback. And what I really want to do is, we have these values here, but look at these values are of course not desirable. We want the month on the first one, but afterwards just the date itself, 10, 20, 30, etc, etc. So what I'm going to do here, we say ticks, and then within the ticks, we're going to call back, we're going to create a callback, and we just have to type in callback for that. That's built in Chartjs. And then what I'm going to grab is 3 different arguments, which is the value, the index, and the values with an S. And once we did that, we're going to put a arrow function expression, and then in here we can start to work. Let's do a console log first, and let's say here value. If I save this, refresh, and alright, we get an error, so probably I forgot a comma. As you can see, make sure you put a comma, save, refresh. So if I refresh, we get all of these values here, which is absolutely phenomenal. So we have these values, but what I want to do here, very importantly, is to start to filter out, making them a bit more intelligent based on whatever we have here. Because right now, as you can see here, our scale has disappeared. And the reason why is we didn't do any return value, so don't worry about that. We can work on that one. So what I'm going to do here is, well, let's do this first. Let's say here return, and then we're going to say here value. Just straightforward this. There we are. So now it works everything again. Next one, what I want to do is here the index, so you will understand what the index is. We get this index here, or here the index numbers, and if we zoom in, you can see it changes. This here is going to be very, very important later on. So once we have that, what we can do here next is the values, and the values is basically containing all the values as an array. The 200 values in the index itself. It has the milliseconds. It shows you major or minor. Normally, for making it bold, we could use the major minor, but for some reason the major minor doesn't work here. So that would mean we have to build it ourselves. So don't worry, that is related to the bolded color. So we will figure that out later on. So then we have the label here of this, and everything is in here. So it shows here all the values, but of course we want to have the individual value, but having this as well is going to become important later on. So what I'm going to do here now is, first of all, I want to know how many ticks we have here, and the amount of ticks is basically the values.length. So I'm going to say a constant total ticks, and then what I'm going to say here equals values.length. And if I do this, I want to also do -2. You might say, why -2 and not -1? Well, we want to loop through everything, and we want to check later on what will be the next value. And if I'm thinking about it right now, I probably might even remove that one, but we'll see about it. So maybe we don't have to do this even. So, well, we'll see later on to confirm. So now what I want to do is, once I have this, I want to get the date of the item. To get the date of the item, what I'm going to do here is basically we're going to grab the value, which is this one, which contains all of this information. We need to convert it into a date object, which is just JavaScript itself. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to say here constant, and then what I will say here is the current tick value, or basically current tick, and then I'm going to say here the current tick will be equal to a new date, and this new date will be the values, and then we're going to say here, we're going to put in here an index, and we say here dot value. So once I do this, because we have the index here, we will get here now the specific item, and we can do it. I'm not sure even if we can do it with the value itself, because the value, I realize, is a specific text, like a label, if I'm not mistaken. So to make sure, I want to have this one here with the index, so we get the same index value here. If I do this, then we can say here console log, and let's grab here the current tick and remove this one here. Save, refresh. Alright, dates is not defined. Let's see here, new date, not dates, because it's a date object without the S. There we are. So now we get just everything here. You can see here the full date, including my time zone here and whatever the date is. Of course, this is all a lot of information. And what we only want to do here is, well, if we are going to do, let's do the first part, is if we're going to check if the date would be May 1, for example, or the May, we want to grab then the May. And what I want to do very specifically is every time when we are on the first of the month, at that moment, instead of showing number 1, I want to show the month itself. And then afterwards, we're going to increment that in whatever that would be. So, and what I mean by incrementing whatever that will be, I refer to whatever the date would be. I need to be precise now, because it's dangerous if I don't explain it correctly. So what I'm going to do here now is we have the current tick here, and let's see what we need to do now. What we can do here, because what I want to do here then is just a simple if statement for the return value. So I'm going to say if, and then what I'm going to say here if, and then we can say here, let's see what we need to do here. Let me double check. So what we need to do here is if, let's grab the current tick, and what we're going to do with the current tick is, because you can see with the current tick, you can see all the information, and all what I want to do here is say if this is, we're going to say a dot get date, and what I want to do here with the get date will be equal strict 1. Basically what I'm saying is I want to get the date of 1, whatever the date would be, in this case 1 November. If that is the case, what I want to do then is I want to return a value. So I'm going to do this one first. So I'm going to return a value, and what is the value we're going to return? Well, this or maybe specifically the date itself. What we can do is, let me just grab this one, we get the date here, make sure that this is in parentheses, sorry. If this is it, I'm going to grab this, then say here dot get month. So we're going to get the month value. If I save this, refresh, what will happen here now is interesting. You will see here we have number 5. Look at number 5 here. Number 5 is June 1. Number 6 is 7, and etc, etc. This is just JavaScript, basic JavaScript items. JavaScript starts at 0 and January equals 0. So what we're going to do now is we need to change this, and what I'm going to do for that is I need to create a simple month array. I'm going to create a very simple month array. So I'm going to say month array with the dates of the month specified. So we say here Jan, Feb, March, April, May, June, July, August, and this is September, comma, what we have here is September, October, November, and finally December. So because we have this, and normally you might say, well, do we need to do it +1? Well, it doesn't matter anymore, because look, we have here an array, and the array starts with 0, and if this is getting 0 as well as starting point, and 11 would be December, we're basically fine here. It's all settled. So what we can do here is just very simple. Going to grab this, put that in there, make this an array, save, refresh. There we are. So now we have the first part here, which is absolutely phenomenal. So that looks beautiful. So what I want to do here is eventually do another item, and that will be an if statement. And this if statement will help us if the date, I'm just going to copy all of this, put it in here, and I'm going to say if get date would be equal 10. I'm going to do 10 because you have January, or the first one of the month would be a month. Then we have 10, 20, and then I will skip the 30 because you already have another month in there. But of course, you can change it as you please once you understand what I'm doing here. So we're going to say if equals 10, and we say or if equals 20. And if you look at not the Bitcoin, the Coinmarketcap chart, you can see there that they use every time 7-day segments, which is fine as well. But I prefer this. And maybe I think use like that 20 or maybe 21 would be even better. Anyway, if I do this, then what I want to say here, I want to grab the date here. So it will check if the date would be equal to this specific date. Save, refresh. Alright, so we get this, but of course it gives here our array value. I don't want that. I just want to get the number. Save, refresh. So there we are. So now, as you can see here, as we zoom in, we're still missing something here, and that will be in the next video, but we have already done a lot of items already, and if I move this, this starts to look very, very nice. So in the next video, we're going to focus on how we can zoom in and then make sure that these values are being shown once we zoom in.